Today we shall be talking about Demna's latest Balenciaga collection. First things first, I think it'll be good for us to read the show notes. And then after that, we can look at the show, look at the looks, look at the runway video, and kind of deduce what Demna has done via Balenciaga. Okay, so let's read the show notes quickly so that we have a good understanding before we look at the runway show of what exactly the intentions were for the Balenciaga collection. So it says standard, a recognized or established level of quality, style, or expectation within a particular area, which serves as a reference for comparison, imitation, or adherence. Now, already that first paragraph is really interesting because in interviews, Demna was saying that this collection, in his mind, was sort of like a paring back. In a way, when you look at the aesthetic of this collection, it's very different to the typical, Balenciaga collections. The silhouettes are a lot slimmer. They're not as exaggerated, wide, and, really, oversized and just comically oversized and stuff like that. So it is different. So it's interesting that in the start, they've already said, standard is something that, is an expectation within a particular area or serves as a reference for comparison. That's interesting. But reading on, the Winter 25 collection is unveiled in a symmetrical backstage maze with multiple exits and entrances, a metaphor for the creative process. Lines are blurred, seating plans are inverted, everyone is given a front row seat. This collection is based on a study of standard dress codes and what it takes to twist standard fits and garments into a fashion context. Focused on a sociological observation of the wardrobe, underpinned by dressmaking principles and a pursuit of the golden ratio. An exercise in rigor, a challenge, a defining and a rethinking of standards. Now, this paragraph, I don't know why it's there, because if we're going to be very honest, Demna does that every season. Like every single Demna Balenciaga season is, based on a study of standard dress codes and what it takes to twist standard fits and garments into a fashion context. That is literally what he does all the time. That's his whole stick. That's his whole MO. So them saying that this collection specifically is a focus on that, not really. I wouldn't really agree with that because I think that's what Demna has been doing for the past 10 years. He even did that at Vetements, right? It's kind of, if you look at Balenciaga couture collections, and these are collections that, I've talked about at length. We talk about them all the time. But in the couture collections, he really is asking those questions, right? Like, what is couture? What is fashion in the modern day? That's why Demna will take like something like a hoodie, but then add the Cristobal Balenciaga couture techniques. That's why you have like a cocoon-shaped hoodie or parka or puffer jacket or something like that. So that whole taking things from the past, a study of standard dress codes, a study of, what people wear and trying to find a way to input that into the modern day using the history and heritage of Balenciaga. That is actually one of the house codes of Demna, if anything else. So I find it interesting that they've put that in the show notes as if to say like this is a focus on something new. But let's read on. Business wear looks open with 4 standard fit 2-piece suits. The same black suit worn by different individuals embodies 2 distinctive attitudes, a double standard, a hand-wrinkled navy business suit, and an intricate grey moth-eaten pinstripe suit. A standard fit jacket paired with a maxi skirt challenges fixed definitions of a suit. Archetypal office commuters emerge wearing a cotton peak polo, an ultralight puffer, and a wetsuit leather jacket tied together by an anatomic approach that applies dressmaking principles to ostensibly banal garments. Once again, Demna already does that. So in terms of like bringing something new to the table and that being like a point of interest, I'm not seeing it there because once again, Demna does that, kind of changing the typical things that we associate with a certain uniform. So them saying, for example, he has paired like a maxi skirt with a suit jacket is a Demna-ism, right? Because normally when people wear suits, like when women wear the skirts aren't super long, right? Sometimes they're mini skirts, sometimes they're just over the knee, but they're definitely not maxi skirts. So that's a Demna-ism, but I've seen that from Demna before. But reading on, daywear silhouettes include streamlined single garment looks, standard fit maxi or 3/4 length coats, offset with goddets and a maxi trench and fake fur coat. So okay, they're going into some of the details. Let me see if there's anything more interesting, because I kind of have a good understanding of like everything that's kind of going on in the collection. Kind of once again, they're alluding to exactly what I've been saying. Standard garments are inverted and twisted while preserving their authenticity. They're talking about how a maxi coat incorporates a cocoon volume. So you guys are seeing what I'm saying. Like very Demna-ism. It's like taking like these everyday mundane pieces of clothing and adding couture and Balenciaga techniques to them to add a sort of like high fashion element to garments that otherwise would be seen as everyday clothing that everyone wears. Of course, here they're talking about the Puma collaboration. They've of course talked about the bathrobe that was very funny that everyone was talking about, a hand-stitched luxury hoodie, which this is also something that he has also talked about in couture. This whole like having a hoodie but then making it hand stitched and all this stuff, and then you write luxury, which is so on the nose and it's supposed to be in jest, right? This is something that we see from so many past Demna collections, right? If you see, for example, if you look at this collection, this is the 424 couture collection by Balenciaga, and in this collection it's the same Demna-isms, right? It's kind of like taking everyday garments like puffer jackets, you know, denim jackets, but then hand dyeing them, hand sewing them, using couture techniques to make them like bomber jackets, adding like Cristobal Balenciaga silhouettes. And that's kind of what makes it couture, and that's what makes it luxury. It's the way it's created. Because Demna's argument a lot of times, which I do agree with, to be fair, is that kind of what made those garments amazing was how they were constructed. So if you take a garment that's typical of what we wear now in the current day, but then you just use the same techniques, why isn't that couture, right? But once again, this idea has been beaten to the ground by Demna. It has literally been beaten to the ground. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see if there's anything else in the show notes apart from the Puma collab. Of course, they've talked about the Alpine Stars collaboration, which I'm interested in. I'm always interested in a motorcycling collaboration. Me being a motorcycling enthusiast myself, I am even wearing one of my motorcycling jackets right now in lieu of the Balenciaga show. So yeah, without further ado, let's kind of have a look at the runway video. Let's see what we can deduce, and I'll share my thoughts in real time. But you guys in the chat, what did you guys think about the show before I start rambling on? But yeah, as you guys can see, I alluded to this earlier, but if you look at the tailoring, it's very different to what we're used to seeing from Demna. Normally has the super oversized, really boxy, you know, really long tailoring. Now he's done the more like actual like modern business casual look with a slimmer fit, which is interesting. Here once again he's kind of playing with tailoring and suiting once again, and office wear, mixing a maxi skirt with a blazer, which is, it's funny because I do kind of like when Demna leans into his codes. So when he asks those questions of what is luxury right now, this whole Balenciaga, I'm guessing it's the Alpine Stars collaboration helmet, it just looks gimmicky. It's just gimmicky. It's just a gimmick. It's just a gimmick. But I do like when he leans into stuff. Like in this collection, you'll see stuff like, you know, gowns, but they're actually hoodies. Things like that. It's very, very Demna Balenciaga-esque. It's quite funny. That look there is something that I would associate more with Alaya than Demna's Balenciaga. But people saying art is anal in the chat. Tarek says, I admittedly felt guilty because I didn't know how to feel about it not being oversized. Yeah, it is crazy. It is crazy. But yeah, like I was saying, so you have like the couture references, you have the evening wear. Even that denim, for example, I don't have it to hand, but I'm very sure that's not actually denim. Demna likes to do those trompe-l'oeils where it's like, you know, it looks like denim, but it's actually made of a really luxurious wool or something like that. Another Demna-ism, I mean, these are every single idea in this collection basically is something I've seen from Demna before. The really crazy black glasses, the incognito sunglasses that are obviously a Martin Margiela reference. He did the incognito sunglasses, and since Demna has started using that reference, he's kind of every season he just changes the shape of those glasses ever so slightly. We have the gimmicks once again. He always, every collection, he has a weird slogans on the t-shirt. So here on a cap and on the shirt, it says main collection. There was also, like I said earlier, a hoodie that was hand stitched, and so they printed luxury on it. It's typical Demna, the fake fur pieces. You have the Alpine style gloves. Also, because of the collaboration, here we have the hoodie gown once again. So funny enough, I don't mind this stuff, right? This stuff here, I've come to accept this is a typical Demna-ism. It's very, what is couture? What is fashion? If hoodies are modern day fashion, why can't we make that into a gown? And let me make a social commentary on everyday clothing that we see as banal. Interesting, cool. He's had the same commentary how many seasons in a row? I get it now. But it's a code of Demna. I'm not too mad when he does it, to be honest. What I don't like, because I think this is like social commentary more so than anything else. What I don't like from Demna is when he just starts slapping the gimmicks in there. And that's where he really loses me with a lot of these collections. Leah says, I think 80% of this show just feels like he is watering down his old looks and past ideas and the Puma stuff like my brother in urbanism. Yeah, it just seems a bit lazy, if I'm going to be honest. Like the collection doesn't really have any ideas really, because if you look at the ideas, like I've literally been telling you, he's been using these same ideas forever. And it's almost like he's pared back the already like mundane ideas, which is really bad actually when you think about it. Once again, we have standard on these horrific muscle tees, I must say. Horrific muscle tees. This is kind of cool. I think something that I do like from Demna, that I appreciate from him as a designer, is he's able to take everyday clothing garments but add a certain element that makes it more interesting to wear. So here, of course, he has the shearling hood, lining on the hood, right? The trimmings, but it's really big. Like it's a lot of it. So it's actually quite exaggerated. Like when you put your hood up, no one can actually see your face. It's almost like incognito. There's these tiny little elements that he adds that makes his clothing so interesting to wear. So like stuff like this, I'm not really too mad. I'm not too mad at stuff like that. I think that's what he does well. Maybe not that look specifically. He's done different ideas using the same sort of thought process that have been way more interesting than having here. Once again, he's added it to the luxury hoodie that I was talking about earlier. But yeah, I've seen better ideas from Demna in that sense. This collection, I thought, thank God he is not in Margiela. To be fair, Balenciaga is a bigger brand than Margiela, so working at Balenciaga is actually the bigger job. Here we've got some of the Puma collab stuff. The Puma collab stuff, I didn't even understand. I just genuinely find when they collab with sportswear brands, it's so lazy. I think the least lazy sportswear collab they've done in recent memory is the Adidas collab. But then the Adidas collab was, tainted with all the controversy and the campaign and all that sort of stuff, right? A lot of these Puma, campaign pieces, you can just find them in Sports Direct. You can literally find them in the Puma store around the corner from your house. Like, there's nothing interesting about it. Like, if you're going to collaborate with a brand like Balenciaga that has an atelier at its disposal, they should be using their skills to actually make more interesting collaborations than just like, these Balenciaga Olympic medals and tracksuits that footballers wear week in, week out. It's just, yeah. Michael says also the Adidas collab was Are You Ready? 3 years ago. Like a piece like this, for example, there is nothing more lazy than a supposed collaboration like that. This literally looks like, isn't Neymar sponsored by Puma? This looks like a tracksuit I've seen Neymar wear like day in and day out. Let me actually see if I can Google Neymar in a Puma tracksuit. I kid you not. Like there is absolutely no difference. Like tell me that the silhouette of this Neymar tracksuit is any different. You cannot tell me that it isn't just a basic ass Puma tracksuit, but just with Balenciaga branding. You cannot convince me that it's not the same. To me, that's just lazy. That is literally lazy. Does it even say Balenciaga on the tracksuit? I'm sure if we zoom in, it probably does somewhere. Because that's the reason why people would buy it. Like, why else would you buy, a Balenciaga tracksuit over a normal tracksuit if it doesn't say Balenciaga somewhere? Yeah, here we go again with the basic tracksuits. It's just lazy. It's honestly lazy. It's lazy. It's lazy design. Here, once again, we have the more Demna-isms wearing gowns out of... Here, we have a gown out of a towel fabric. He's done that a few times, actually, the whole towel fabric, making a gown. Or just using fabrics that we associate for different things with different garments. You guys remember the Balenciaga towel skirt. It's kind of like the same idea. It's like taking an everyday garment like a skirt, but then making it with a fabric that is quite unusual to be used with that sort of garment. So once again, some more Demna-isms that we already know, we already understand at this point why they're gowns between tracksuits. That's the Demna way. That's the Demna Balenciaga way. Here, once again, we've got some more basic ass tracksuits. Once again, the gowns with the oversized, exaggerated belt, incognito sunglasses. We've got the gilets, kind of like sportswear, and that's the main showstopper, I guess. And here, once again, the same Demna-isms. It's taking like a puffer jacket that is a very everyday wear piece. A lot of people wear puffer jackets, and then it's, you know, it's making a gown out of it, which this is not unique in any way to me, because when I see a silhouette like that, do you know what I think of? I'll put it on a screen for you guys. I think of Pio Paolo Piccioli Moncler Genius, if I'm going to be very honest. So it's not even that unique, because I've seen so many people do that, but better. Look at what Pio Paolo did with Moncler Genius when he made gowns with puffer jackets and puffer materials. Look at the art. Look at the beautiful gowns that Pio Paolo made, and then compare it to what Demna made. So to me, when I'm looking at that stuff on the runway, it looks to me like a worse version of like this. And by the way, Pio Paolo is not the only person that has done stuff like this. Like, so many other designers have done this. But when I think of some of the best examples of this, I think of this Moncler Genius collab. I think this was in like 2019, or it could have even been earlier, right? So yeah, nothing too crazy there. Okay, let's see. Let me just restart. So guys, anyway, what do you think of the collection, guys? What's your verdict? Yeah, Micah says credit where credit is due. The Adidas collab was actually pretty good. I totally agree with you. It definitely was. Also, a quote. I have some quotes from Demna, because when Demna gets to quoting, I always get confused as to what exactly he means. Because I think every time I read one of his quotes, I just get confused. It reads like a contradiction. But anyway, I'll read it out for all of you guys. So he said, "Do I really want to do something that is pretending to be fashion just because it grabs attention because of it?" Now, that confuses me, because his whole stick with this collection was, you know, I'm paring things back. It's really about, you know, focusing on the clothes and all that. And he has this quote via Vogue where he says, "Do I really want to do something that is pretending to be fashion just because it grabs attention because of it? Or do I want someone to tell me this is the best coat I've been wearing for the last 5 years?" Now that confuses me, because you do gimmicky things. There are a lot of things that, whether Demna believes it in his soul, in his heart of hearts or not, there are things that, as someone observing, they just look like things that are done just to grab attention. You cannot tell me that you made a Balenciaga towel skirt and it wasn't to grab attention. Like, you cannot tell me that. Whatever your philosophical meaning behind a towel skirt is, it's still very attention seeking. It's the same reason why you would, you know, do the IKEA bags, or you had bin bags as bags, or shoe boxes as bags. That is a gimmick. That is literally an attention seeking item on the runway that you know will do well, that will go viral. And I actually like that from Demna. I think it's interesting. I think it's quite funny, kind of pushing fashion and seeing how far fashion can go, and how willing customers are to buy into a brand, even when the items that they are buying are just so obviously ridiculous. However, just don't what my issue is not even the products, is just don't pretend that's not what you're doing, though. Don't pretend that it's more than a gimmick. Don't pretend like, you know, let me read that quote specifically once again. Let's read it again. "Do I really want to do something that is pretending to be fashion just because it grabs attention because of it? Or do I want someone to tell me this is the best coats I've been wearing for the last 5 years?" So once again, when I read a lot of his quotes, I get really confused, because I'm like, that doesn't actually make a lot of sense. Like, if we just start going through your catalog, there's so many gimmicks. Like, where can I start? Where do I even start? Like, bin bags, shoebox bags, towel skirts, 8-layer parkas, t-shirt on a shirt, like shirt sewn into a shirt. Like, all these are gimmicks. Like, I can really like break down his whole catalog and just tell you about all the gimmicks. Like, how can you say I'm not, you know, doing something that is pretending to be fashion just because it grabs attention because of it? I just don't, you know, as someone that is very critical, I can just clock that T immediately. You said, yeah, clock that T, sister. Clock the T, sis. Yeah, chips bags. Exactly. Like, what is he talking about? Like, seriously, what is he talking about? I don't get it. Demna having an existential crisis during interviews is always amazing because maybe he actually doesn't know if he is doing the gimmicks anymore. I just think that maybe he isn't self-aware. The more I read his interviews, it just comes across like he isn't self-aware. That's how it comes across, to be honest. That's honestly how it comes across. Yeah, jeans on the head. I forgot about that one. Jeans on the head. Jeans, the top of jeans as a collar of coats and stuff is something he's done in the past, which is definitely a gimmick. So to be doing all of those things and then to say, you're not, creating stuff that's pretending to be fashion just because it grabs attention because of it. I don't know. You have to choose one. I think that Demna is really intelligent and he's a marketing genius, but you have to choose one. You can't be a marketing genius and then deny the marketing genius. You can't do that. You can't be like, no, that's not what I'm doing at all. We're not going to have that. I genuinely believe the gimmicks and tricks went too far and it's indistinguishable from his actual best and most skilled work. Yeah, I just think he's in his era now where he's just not trying anymore, to be very honest, and he's just going to keep not trying until he stops getting away with it. I just think that's where it is. Like, you see how easily I broke down this collection, like with so much ease. I could have broken down this collection. I could have reviewed it in my sleep because I know all his codes already. I know all his ideas and I know where they come from and I know what he's trying to achieve through the clothing. I already know. It's light work. This is literally like a cakewalk for me, honestly. But guys, let's have a look. Let's have a deeper look at some of the items via Instagram. Let's see some of the close-ups. We're seeing some of the footwear. They made some Puma Speed Cats, which is interesting because Speed Cats have very much been a trending shoe. It's kind of, Speed Cats are kind of in lieu of the trend of Adidas Special and Adidas Sambas and what's the Japanese brand? It's skipped my mind, but that brand is also really buzzing. But they all kind of have this like low profile, tiny sole, low top kind of design that everyone likes. That's all the rage and it's trending right now. So yeah, Anitika Tiger. There we go. Anitika Tiger. Exactly. Yeah, you guys know. You guys in the chat know. So it's kind of in that kind of realm, and they've done this collaboration. They've kind of done the typical Balenciaga thing where it looks distressed and they make it distressed and worn out looking. But let's read the description. The Balenciaga Puma collaboration introduces an updated version of the Speedcat sneaker, originally released in 1999, now crafted in worn out suede, all structural elements from the upper to create a flexible sock-like fit while keeping the original thin, flexible, flat sole. The form strip found at the side comes ripped, a new interpretation of a Puma signature detail. The result is an extremely worn out profile that molds to your foot, which is nearly impossible to achieve by typical usage. So yeah, I mean, it's in lieu with what Balenciaga usually does. To give Balenciaga props though, one thing that I think Balenciaga does exceptionally well every single season is the footwear. I think that Balenciaga is actually on the forefront in terms of luxury brands making footwear, not so much the Speedcat collaboration. I think they're giving themselves more credit than they need to because they don't look that different from ordinary Speedcats, to be very honest with you. However, normally like the mainline footwear that Balenciaga makes for Balenciaga is really innovative and they're always on the cutting edge when it comes to creating new footwear. I actually don't know how they do it because it's very difficult to come up with new footwear every season. It's really, really hard. So that's something I'll always give Balenciaga props for. And shout out to the footwear designer at Balenciaga. Honestly, he's now just taking fashion tropes that young people wear right now instead of creating something new unseen. But I think it was more or less always like that. No, I think it was more or less always like that. Even from the Vetements days, right? He was taking things from different, like he'll take things from like a uniform. Like let's say because Demna is inspired by things that he sees around him. A lot of designers are like that, right? So at Vetements, he would see a police uniform he likes and then he would kind of change it a little bit. Or he would see streetwear that people wear and kind of add his own twist on it and then he's been doing that since the Vetements days. He's kind of always done that. I just think earlier Balenciaga, he did it more intelligently. I think now he's just not even trying. He almost doesn't change it that much anymore. It's just, he just gives it to you on the plate. That's kind of what it feels like these days. But anyway, let's move on. Let's see what else they've got for us. Okay, here we have the puffer gown. So let's see what the description is. Okay, they're just talking about the collection in general. It says standard, a recognized or established level of quality. Okay, that's from the show notes, so I'm just not going to read that. We just have close-ups of the gilet, the sportswear, the Puma collabs with the speed cats, and those like crazy black incognito sunglasses that they've been working with for a while now. I just don't know why you would want to buy distressed speed cats, but anyway. This was kind of cool. I would have loved if Demna, and this is why I say he's not trying. If Demna expanded on this idea, he would have been onto a winner. Because he always does that, but I just want to see interesting ways of taking the mundane and making it interesting. So taking something like the typical office wear and adding a blazer with a maxi skirt, which is literally something you would almost never see in an office, especially in a corporate setting, is quite interesting. And I would like to see him play with kind of those ideas, like taking things that are very fixated in society, like ways that people dress, and turning it on its head, rather than just being like, people wear hoodies, but I'm a designer at Balenciaga, so I'm going to make a gown out of this hoodie instead. Or, people wear t-shirts, but what even is couture anyway? What is high fashion? So instead of a normal t-shirt, it's going to be hand sewn. And it's just that I feel like those specific ways of doing it are really played out. And that's why those kind of ideas, it's kind of this once again, like the whole, luxury thing printed. They always have these like really cringe slogans on a lot of the garments. Really, really cringe slogans. I do like this idea though. I just don't think it was executed perfectly, but this idea of changing everyday garments slightly, so adding this like really exaggerated shearling lining on the hood is cool, just not on that piece though. I think it made more sense on a denim piece, but I think it could have made more sense on an even different piece, to be honest. But I do like the idea, like I see the vision with it. So I like where that was going. It's just the cringe slogans always get me. You have these boots. These boots are very interesting. These boots are kind of like a hybrid of old Balenciaga boots, right? They look like a mix of like Hessian boots, like typical old school, riding boots, and then kind of like the kind of armor that Balenciaga made in the past, but just typical armor from centuries ago, like how the shape of the footwear on armor looks. It looks like a hybrid of Hessian boots and armor, which is cool. I also like how on this look that I said I really like, this sort of blazer paired with a maxi skirt, they have these kind of exaggerated pointy shoes to go with it, because once again, that's an even further play on office attire, exaggerating things like heels that women typically wear in the corporate setting, right? So I find that interesting here. Typical Demna thing, right? It's very much like taking a market bag, the kind of bag that when you buy stuff at different markets you get, but instead they've just printed Balenciaga Paris on it, and they're going to charge you an arm and a leg and a kidney and a liver for their version of a market bag, and people will buy it happily for some reason. I don't know why. Now, let's read the description. Plastic shopper bags are crafted with dyneema, making them virtually indestructible, from Balenciaga for Winter 25. Demna consistently references shopper bags within his collections. Yeah, we know this already. The newest edition may be the most visually accurate. Dyneema is a textile that is known for its tensile strength, having fibers that is one of the world's strongest, even stronger than steel. This textile is often used for body armor and sporting equipment. It was also used here due to the resemblance to authentic plastic shopper bags. Once again, it's a played out idea. I've already spoken that Demna likes to do this. He takes like everyday things, but he uses couture techniques or uses like a really luxurious fabric to make it. And that's kind of what he does. He does it every season. Nothing new here. There's nothing new to see here, but it's cool. He does it every season, but it's cool. Or when he did the shoe boxes as bags, those are made with like really high quality leather, so they don't, wear really easily. So it's an idea that we see all the time from Demna, but I'm not too mad at it. Here they have the Balenciaga Puma collab versions in the dyneema fabric. Yeah, typical Demna-ism. Typical. Okay, now they've talked about the luxury piece, so they wanted to focus on it even more. Let's see what they've said in the description. Irregularities can be found in the stitching of the hand-stitched luxury hoodie and sweatpants. Look 40. With a closer look at this sweatsuit, many handmade details became prevalent. Each piece is hand-stitched, and to emphasize this, stitches are purposely uneven and misaligned. Fabric is bundled slightly in some areas also to highlight the unique construction and feel. The hoodie is lined with cashmere and has a hood with faux fur detail. So first of all, the hand stitching already is how we know that it's like luxurious. It's already a Demna-ism that we're very familiar with. Why did they have to make it like irregular? Why did they have to do that to it though? Why did they have to deliberately make it irregular and kind of mess it up in a way? Why? It's just like, why? Why do they have to do that? I feel like that's so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. This sewing is crap. How much is the hoodie selling for? Yeah, they've told us that the bad sewing is deliberate, but it's like, why would I want to buy a quite obviously, deliberately badly sewn garment? It's like, yeah, they do want to incorporate the aesthetic of bad clothes, but it's just like, it's played out. Like, he's done it enough. Like, let's actually have well-constructed clothes. Like, this whole, we're making badly constructed clothing in jest. It's just really jarring, to be very honest. Oh yeah, this is the piece that I talked about in the previous live. So this is the moth-eaten pinstripe suit. This is, referencing kind of how garments interact with how we use them. So this idea that you store your garments in your closet, and some people, if they neglect their clothing, they don't take care of where they keep their garments, moths might eat away at your garments, and over time, that's how your garments look. However, as Balenciaga does, even when something looks like it has holes or it's badly made, everything is done deliberately, right? So in this post, they clearly state the techniques used in making this sort of moth-eaten technique. So it says Balenciaga Fall Winter 25 opens with standard fit two-piece suits. Shown here is a moth-eaten pinstripe suit. So they said the moth-eaten distressing is embroidered in to secure the effect. These suits feature handmade elements. Intricacy is prevalent. Linings are hand-sewn and finishings are hand-stitched. Styled with a moth-eaten knit turtleneck and hyper-flat derby. So once again, it's kind of like exaggerating these everyday things. It's taking like a typical like office pair of footwear. I mean, like derby is really, really typical of what you would wear with a suit, or just what you would wear as office attire in general, and kind of really, really exaggerating those. I do like the footwear because I just like how they kind of push the fold every time. They're kind of really pushing boundaries of fashion, but I just don't know about a moth-eaten blazer though. I just think it's a bit gimmicky, to be very honest. I understand the concept of it. I still think it's a bit gimmicky. Where would you wear that suit? Let's see what Felix says. It does take it further than other collections. They make it look like shit craft, still with couture techniques, kind of pointless, but also kind of taking Demna's ideas into to their logical conclusion. Yeah, I totally agree. Wait, you can Google Marsh St. Pierre bag. It's a tissue store. He even was influenced by a tissue store at this moment. It feels like he is. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. That is actually insane. Oh my God. That's funny. That's actually quite funny. But anyway, let's see what else you guys are saying. Why does the stitching look so rough? Because they've done it badly deliberately. They've deliberately made it look bad. I just don't like it as an idea, to be. I just think it's a bad idea. I understand why they're doing it, but I just think it's a bad idea, to be honest. Okay, these are the boots that I really like. I think are interesting. I said there's a hybrid between Hessian boots and armor. They're called the Excavator riding boots from Balenciaga Winter 25. The Excavator line is a question inspired. Oh, so yeah, it is a question inspired. So I'm along the right line, saying they look like a hybrid of Hessian boots. So they're question inspired and originally debuted for Fall Winter 20. Since then, the line has received multiple new additions, considering it's one of Demna's favorite boot shapes. The rider boot has the same wide shaft that the Excavator is defined by, styled with a bathrobe, which was made in collaboration with Puma. So yeah, that's the bathrobe, and then you have the UV reflective sunglasses with the plastic shopper bag, plastic effect. Shopper bag, once again, let's see. Also, the Demna quotes, they need to stop quoting Demna because I just don't think you learn anything from Demna quotes. Let's read this quote. I feel better with myself, so I dare more to go into places where I haven't been yet. Once again, to me, as a fashion journalist, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because how can Demna possibly say, I dare to go into places that I haven't been yet, when I can literally review your collections before they even come out? That means that you're repeating yourself constantly. That means actually, contrary to what you're saying, you're not going to places that you haven't been yet. If anything, you're going to the same coffee shop and ordering the same coffee every day. So they need to stop with these quotes. They need to stop with these quotes. They don't help. None of these quotes help. But let's read on. Okay, they're just talking. Let's see what the next quote is. What I want to do now is just to make great clothes for someone who understands them through wearing them. To make a jacket with 2 sleeves that looks good on many different people. This is, for me, fashion in its most important state. Okay. This is also, typical Demna-ism once again. It's kind of the dust bag with the drawstrings, but actually made into a Balenciaga bag. Interesting, I don't have any of the close-ups on like the medals and all that sort of like weird stuff. This, I kind of find it interesting. So I actually really like these. I've been able to sit on these. I do like these. So you guys know that I'm a motorcycling enthusiast. I'm actually wearing a motorcycling jacket right now, a real one, not like a Balenciaga fake inactive one. This jacket actually is abrasion resistant. If I fell off my motorbike and slid on the ground, my skin would be protected. It has shoulder pads, elbow armor, chest armor, back armor. It's a real motorcycling jacket, not the fake stuff that Balenciaga makes. I love Alpine Stars. It's one of my favorite brands, motorcycling brands. They tend to collaborate with a lot of fashion brands, it seems. They've collaborated with the likes of Helliot and Mill in the past, for example. As someone that has a lot of motorcycling gear, I already know just by looking at these gloves that these are some of the cheapest Alpine Stars gloves that you can buy. First of all, they're the short ones, not the long ones that cover bits of your wrist. It's also made with like a textile. And the more expensive, Alpine Stars gloves are the racing ones. So those are like the full grain leather ones. Those are the really expensive gloves. So they've taken like basically one of the cheapest gloves and they've absolutely taxed their customers. I'm not Porsche shaming. I'm just showing how much Balenciaga is scamming its customers. They couldn't even like remodel like a more expensive Alpine Stars pair of gloves. They chose one of the cheapest models to work on. It doesn't even have like the full length knuckle armor. It has like that lackluster armor that you associate with like beginner gear for motorcycling riders. And then of course they've made it unwearable and unusable practically by adding all those piercings and stuff. But I'm not mad at that. I think these gloves are just purely a fashion accessory. I just find it interesting that they have chosen one of the cheapest models of Alpine Stars gloves, and then they're going to like tax people a crazy amount. I just find that interesting. It's fascinating. Let me show you guys just so that you guys know what I'm talking about. There's a shop that I buy all my motorcycling gear from. It's called Sports Bike Shop in the UK. It's the best place to buy motorcycling gear because they price compare with everywhere else. So if you find something cheaper online, you send them a message and then they have to price match everything. So the cheapest stuff most times you find on this website. Let me just show you like the different Alpine Stars gloves just to give you a good understanding of how they're taxing these Balenciaga customers, just so you can see for yourselves. Okay, so let's sort by highest price so I can show you. So the kind of expensive gloves are like race gloves. Obviously, race gloves will be the most expensive because race gloves have to have, the highest level of protection because you're obviously riding your motorcycle at high speeds. So if you fall off your bike at high speeds, you need the best protection. So you have like these GP Tech gloves. These normally cost like £330. They're like really expensive, right? Fair enough, because they're protecting your hands literally from damage. It makes a lot of sense. So you can see the kind of knuckle protection, the carbon plates. Some of them have like injected steel plates over there. And then you can see all these are made with leather. They're all made with leather. And then as you start going down the line, let's go some more pages. These are still like more expensive than what Balenciaga used in their collaboration. These are still like well-designed, proper like carbon plate, carbon structured knuckles with the finger protection. They've even got, so a lot of motorcycling gloves will have like the slide bit on this side of the glove, so that if you slide off your motorbike, it kind of slides seamlessly and you don't damage, your hands. No one rocks those full leather gloves. When people wear them for fashion, like everyone wears the short gloves. Yeah, so even the short gloves, I'm showing short gloves that are still better constructed than the ones that Balenciaga chose to use. We're still going back. These Alpine Stars like SMX Z Dry Stars are still better constructed than what Balenciaga actually used. Because I think they said it that Balenciaga used their SMX2s. So let's see. They used Alpine Stars SMX. SMX2. Yeah, so these are actually not these specific ones, but these are the line of gloves that Balenciaga reworked. It's like the same kind of line. So, like I've said, they chose like basically one of the cheapest models to rework. So it's just interesting that they're probably going to retail for like 800, 900 maybe. It might even be more, which is insane to me because they shouldn't be that expensive. You've literally chosen one of the cheapest models of Alpine Stars, like literally one of the cheapest gloves that Alpine Stars offers. But anyway, let's read the description. Let's see what they say. Alpine Stars gloves receive spike, piercing, and distressing treatment, from Balenciaga for Winter 25. The Winter 25 collection continues the Alpine Stars collaboration, first introduced in the Summer 24 collection, expanding the partnership into new categories that merges Balenciaga's ongoing exploration of motorsports-inspired apparel and accessories with Alpine Stars' expertise in high performance and racing equipment. I don't know why they've said it's mixed with Alpine Stars' expertise in high performance racing equipment, because a lot of times when Balenciaga collaborates with Alpine Stars, they void it. Like most times when they collaborate with Alpine Stars, they take away the practicality. Like you literally cannot wear these gloves to motorcycle because of like the piercings and stuff. You'd hurt yourself. So I don't know why they've said mixed with Alpine Stars' expertise in high performance, because they've kind of made Alpine Stars' expertise in performance null and void, to be very honest. Yeah, if you're distressing it, how is it still quality material? Yeah, it's like how? So it's like, yeah, you can't even use them. So it's just like, I don't see why they've said mixed with Alpine Stars' expertise in high performance, because yes, like I said, Alpine Stars is one of my favorite motorcycling gear brands. I like I like Alpine Stars. There's a lot of brands that I like. But it's just like you've made the practicality null and void. Like Balenciaga in the past has made like a motorcycling jackets, and they don't. In fact, let me actually show you, just so I can actually show you that I see this stuff all the time. Let me go Vogue Runway Balenciaga. Let me actually show you exactly what I'm talking about, because it's like when they say expertise, I'm like, I don't get it, because it's like you've made it null and void. So this is the pre-fall 25 collection. I remember they kind of did the same thing in this collection, right? Where they made the technology null and void. Let me see if I can find the piece that I'm looking for specifically. I found it. So they made this motorcycle jacket, but their whole stick was making this motorcycle jacket with the thinnest leather possible. Guys, if you wore this jacket as an actual motorcyclist, if you fell off your motorcycle, it would rip into a million pieces. It would literally turn into, you know, when you put paper through a shredder. That's what would happen to this jacket if you were to fall off. Yeah, no padding, nothing. If you were to fall off your motorcycle, this jacket would shred like how you shred paper in a shredding machine. So once again, when they say, you know, Demna's, you know, his craft and his dedication to these inspirations of motorcycling, it's just like, bro, just say it's an accessory and he's inspired by motorcycling and it's not usable. Don't start talking about expertise in high performance and stuff. Let's see what they've said. The house has reworked the Alpine Stars touchscreen compatible SMX2 Air Carbon V2 and Morph gloves with signature piercing spikes and distress treatments. The SMX2 Air Carbon V2 glove incorporates ergonomic carbon knuckle guards, a full-grain technical leather construction, and a 3D mesh shell for enhanced breathability, while the Morph glove features a Morphtec weave backhand over injected knuckle protection and ride knit inserts for flexibility and comfort. So yeah, that was just, as a motorcyclist, that was my rant about their supposed dedication to motorcycling technology. But as a fashion accessory, I think it's really cool though. I will say I would probably buy those as a fashion accessory if it cost, let's say Alpine Stars would probably sell it for like £80, no more than £100. So if I did their you know, taxing and they taxed me like 250, I wouldn't be too mad at that. But I know they're just not going to cost 250. They're going to cost 750, at which point buying this makes you a muppet. At which point, unless of course you're just that rich, but like honestly, if you're like a normal citizen like me, yeah, you're kind of a muppet if you spend £750 on like an £80 Alpine Stars glove with some spikes on it, because you could actually make this yourself. You could actually distress the gloves and then just, you know, add some piercings to it. And then you could also, is there any Balenciaga branding? There isn't even Balenciaga branding, so it's not like you need to print Balenciaga anywhere or do like, you know, different prints on it. So you could make it yourself, to be honest. Spend north of 700 has their hand inside of you. Once again, they're talking about this collection being a study of standard dress codes and what it takes to twist standard fits and garments into a fashion context. But yeah, all in all, you guys kind of get the gist of the collection. There were elements that I thought were actually really cool and really interesting, as I've kind of mentioned throughout my review. However, I just think that at this point, it feels like Demna is regressing as a designer and he's not really trying anymore. He genuinely isn't trying. This is one of the on the lower side of Demna collections. If I was to rate them on a scale of what is Demna's best collection, I definitely always say, without a shadow of a doubt, that the worst Balenciaga collection that Demna has ever made is that Erewhon collection. I promise you, he will never make a collection that bad ever again. He would have to work really hard to make a collection that's worse than that collection. Like, that collection was so bad. Like, let me just jog your memory for guys that don't know the collection I'm talking about. It was the LA collection, you know, inspired by like LA celebrity culture. Basically, the first few looks were basically Lululemon looking tights with the oversized Balenciaga shoes, oversized hoodies, the washed out dye, the Erewhon bags, the Erewhon collabs. The whole thing was just a hot mess, basically. This definitely by far is Demna's worst collection he's ever put on a runway, ever. So yeah, it's definitely not this bad, but I definitely would say his latest collection is on the lower side of by his standards. Definitely by his standards. LA collection at least doesn't have on purpose bad garments. Yeah, like the purposely badly stitched garments. The LA one is shit, but do we know if it sold well? I don't know, to be honest. I mean, we don't unfortunately get the Balenciaga financials because Balenciaga is not big enough. So when you look at the Kering financial reports, we don't see the breakdown of Balenciaga quarter to quarter the way we do, you know, Gucci or Bottega Veneta or Saint Laurent, unfortunately. So we don't know. I have no idea, to be honest. I'd have to ask someone that I know works at Balenciaga. But to be honest, I know that if I was to look at some of the pieces, I mean, a lot of these things sell, like the hoodies and like all that sort of stuff. Like a lot of celebrities wear that sort of stuff, like rappers wear that stuff. Now we've got like Balenciaga's version of Chanel. This was funny. And then like the coffee. God, that collection was a mess. Those shoes also sold really well. Those boots, let me find them. Yeah, these boots here, a lot of people I've seen wear these. So these definitely sold quite well, actually. But me seeing them, because I work in fashion, so, you know, me seeing them is, you know, it doesn't, because I feel like I live in a fashion bubble where I just see all this like fashion stuff and like it doesn't reflect the way people dress. Do you think Demna needs to move to another house to be good again? For me, I think Demna has already done it all at Balenciaga. Yeah, I totally agree with you, but I don't know, because I think that what he offers is still kind of unique in terms of compared to many other brands. Like, it has a very distinctive and quite obvious point of view. And what's the point of Demna leaving for another designer to come and then do the same quiet luxury boring thing there? So it's just like, you know, when I look at it from that perspective, I don't have too much of an issue with like Demna just rehashing the same ideas over and over again. Like we know he's going to do that at this point. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm not too mad at it. But yeah, it's just like he has exhausted all his ideas there, it seems, though, for sure. Hello, Leo. How are you?
Can you?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's a bit echoey. Okay, actually, it's a lot better now.
Sorry, I'm in a new room. It's like my new studio, so it needs a lot of work done. But here's the thing.
Here we go.
It starts with the gimmick. So the connotation of the word gimmick is so bad, right? Because everyone thinks gimmick, poor trick, you're trying to pull one over on us, all of these things, right? And at sometimes he is trying to do something like people have said, like subvert what the audience expects or like critics expect from him. But then I think there came a point where the fashion market had taken to some of the other things he was using. So like the streetwear elements, I'm putting streetwear in inverted commas, but there was almost like a homogenization of all of the things that were different about him, when he was at Vetements in the earlier years of having clothes that he could easily say, I see people wearing this in the street, therefore it's valid. And then he would add a gimmick on something, and then we would have at least a lot of redeeming qualities in the collections. But at the same time, it's like, oh, he has this gimmick of a bomber jacket that's extremely puffy, or he has that, like the coat that Micah has that season where it was like almost like the 3-collared one, that heavy Parker. There was that period. Then I think he doubled down on the gimmick, and he just started making poor clothes because he started parodying himself. So it became a point where I can't look at your collection and say, oh yeah, this is interesting anymore, because I don't even think you're talking about anything or it like using the gimmick in the right places for it to actually be interesting. It is purely, this is going to get attention of jeans on someone's neck. That's it. There's nothing there's nothing in its design to be interesting enough for us to need it.
Right. Which is why I found it even more funny with his quote.
That's what I'm more angry about. He needs to shut up. He needs to stop speaking completely.
Yeah.
Like, at all, he needs to stop speaking.
He came in swinging. Oh my God. He came in all guns blazing. But I do agree. I've always said that his quotes, because exactly what you said.
Everything he's doing is stupid, is like self-referential in the wrong way.
Right. But when did Martin Rose leave Balenciaga? After like a few...
Because if you start parodying yourself, you then lose everything else.
Yeah, facts.
2019, 20, around that time, wasn't it? It's definitely before COVID, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah.
Damn, a meltdown? That's crazy. I wouldn't call it a meltdown. I just think he's not trying, that's all. Which is what I said.
I think the creative pool that he gets his references and stuff from has 2 places left. And one terrifies me, and then the other one I don't think he's going to do, because it actually requires him to design. One is the Philip Klein route of the Eastern European guys that wear like tighter size jeans, the loud t-shirts that have designs of a skull and stuff here, and it's like dressed up, but you're not like, it's not dressed up. It's like the people who have one amazing pair of jeans and that expensive t-shirt. Those sorts of guys, that's his next stop. I think he's there now. And the other side is like the more, if you use the stereotypical image of like a geek or a nerd, like a computer type of person, that is the other side he could have gone, where he could have done something very interesting with that look of like golf shirts with things like basic hoodies and stuff that looks like mundane and boring almost, but he could have done something interesting. And I don't think he'll touch that.
Right.
I don't think he's going that instead. I think his only place left after those absolute nonsense tracksuits and sweatsuits going down. And that's why I'm so angry, because he has nowhere else to go but that route.
Oh my God.
He's starting to I know you'll understand, and some of us Africans will understand. You know when you see like designer that's fake, but like the stupid fake one, like that is never ever being designed by anyone in France. It's a screen print with a digitally on thing. That is where he's going next, because there's nowhere else he can go based on what he's showing us. He's showing us that I don't care. Y'all are gonna take this either way. This is Balenciaga. I have a name that gets a premium slot on Fashion Week. You're gonna watch my stuff because I've given you 4 years of decent. He's given us at least 4 years of like, okay, this is respectable. After 2020, it's whether you believe, he's done like worth it.
Facts. I think he has in the accessory space. In terms of accessories, he has definitely.
Yeah. No, accessories, I'll say like, I don't even hate the gloves. I think the gloves are cool. I think they're probably gonna come with a warning saying, please don't ride your bike. Like, guys, let's just understand what we're doing. Let's both understand that this is the gimmick. Like, because I just want to add to the gimmick point. I think for some people, when they hear the word gimmick, they immediately have a problem with it. I don't think the gimmick was the problem. I think the problem became his idea of, and I said this in a voice chat on Discord before, I think he became safe after the controversy, where like he didn't take any risks. And I think it actually extended, he must have understood it as, don't risk anything, even like design-wise, of what you learned design-wise. So he just became self-referential and started gimmicking the gimmick, which is like, at this point, bro, like, what are we doing here? Like, genuinely, like a lace bag Balenciaga thing. And
it was crazy.
I saw one. It's not horrible to look at, but I would never swipe my card in it. Imagine seeing the.
I mean, it has an interesting construction, like the way it's constructed, but like it's just like a lace bag, like really.
And I think the thing we're saying about accessories, he has 2 more seasons of us giving him that benefit. I genuinely believe that also. I think at a certain point, everyone looks at you and says, you can't keep doing this. Like you're at Balenciaga, you're not at Vetements, where we could give you the benefit of, or you're trying to do something. Now it's like, hey, bro, people are smartening up, them. Like, there's some people learning about Balenciaga now and being like, this is Balenciaga. This is
Do you know what I find fascinating though? There's people now who are like going, I guess maybe almost just finding about Demna's work. And then they're saying that, you know, I don't understand why people say that Demna's work is like just like gimmicks and all this stuff, because and then they start mentioning references from like Vetements. So they start talking about like, you know, like the post-Soviet aesthetic, some of the stuff that he would take from like Balkan aesthetics, or like some stuff, some inspiration from like Russian street culture, or like stuff that he's seeing. Yeah, facts.
Well, no,
or
he
like,
had his one.
he did, yeah. Gosha wore the DHL t-shirt on
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it.
Because I was before that show. I didn't even know when the show was. I just saw the notification, but I was watching like old Vetements when he was there and certain other shows. Before people think I'm like hating on it, I don't mind him going to Eastern Europe for the aesthetic, but you finish the pool, it seems, because everything feels like you're going to certain parts that we know you've done some version of this before. Like, it almost feels as if he's saying, like, in this world that I'm building from my reference pool, only this, and this exists. I do think that it was very interesting to see how we looked at Antwerp and said, oh, this store has these sorts of things, so this is what I'm bringing out. That was
interesting. That was interesting. That was actually interesting.
Because it's something you always see. Like, if any New Yorkers here, it's like going to those I Love New York stores. Like, oh, this is always in my face. I've never, well, some people probably don't.
I think the story also made sense, right? Because it's like, so even the DHL t-shirts that he did, the reason why he wanted to do it is because he said that when he was a student, obviously DHL is like really expensive. Everyone knows that. When he was a student, he would like have to save money to ship things with DHL. So it's kind of like a reminder of like how he started and how difficult it was when he started as a designer. So there's like an endearing story to just something as simple as like a DHL t-shirt, or like the Antwerp hoodie, for example. There's literally, I have a vlog in Antwerp where I showed it, but there's a shop in Antwerp where they sell like kind of like, you know, like the I Love New York. That's their version of like the I Love New York hoodie. And he referenced that a lot in Vetements, but like kind of made it interesting. So I just think that when you look at his start, it was more like a designer that's actually like inspired. And now it just seems like a designer that just doesn't care. Like, it's just, the man really doesn't care.
Like, I don't know, if you want to show anything to people, this is the one I always say to people. I think it's the last show. I genuinely believe he either had something to say, or he had a place to look at for inspiration, or I talk about with my friends a lot, like the idea of a creative funnel or filter, where it's like you can have a bunch of things you think of, but when it goes through this filter, it creates something valuable in some way, whether cool looking, whether whatever. Is Autumn Winter 21. That's the last time I think he really like, alright, there's something to put you. Yo, shout out Lucas Abad, OG days. That's
those are the OG days.
But this, in my opinion, this is worse than the Era one. I know you said it, but this is worse. You decided on, this is not pre-fall, this is not pre-spring, this you decided we're going to Paris with this stuff. That's what he woke up one day and said, this is going to Paris. I don't think people understand, because we all have the joke of everything else. So if you literally have 2 shows a year that you have in your heat, like we're expecting something, you decided to come to Paris at the beginning of the year with this. Like, come on, bro. Like, at some point we have to look at him and say, oh, it's cool. And it hurts me because I like them now. So well, why
do you think that no one is? Because I genuinely, from what I've seen, I think my channel is actually the only channel that like has that critique of Demna's Balenciaga, and everything else I see is oh, Balenciaga's amazing, it's perfect, it's like great, Demna's a genius, blah 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 blah. Why is it that no one is like seeing that? I don't get it.
I think because the only other groups of people that may have been able to say something, he was making clothes that they could wear and buy.
Right.
He at a certain point he left making or like catering to a certain market. I still say it's Autumn Winter 21, but there are pieces that are like sprinkled out over that looks like he understands who he was talking to in a sense. Like maybe even if people want to say that show that Ye was in, I can't believe I said his name also. crazy names have been said today. But that show when
Yeah.
they were walking in the mud and stuff, you could argue. But again, even at
The
this point,
controversial
some of reappears and yeah. But I think it got to a point where he was making sort of an aesthetic and a vibe that a group of people could literally build a closet around. They could have a statement code from Balenciaga, this, that. So it was quiet for them.
Right.
They're making for me. Now, if you had to ask him who his target market is, it's probably only people in Calabasas. We can't even say it's the East Asian market, that the Far East market, which had always been supportive of him, because aesthetic wise, from again, I don't have like the expertise of like being on the ground in certain countries, but from the aesthetics that tend to come over, it doesn't seem like he's talking to the same people anymore.
Yeah, I don't even see a lot of like, because my gauge for that is like the Asian international students, that because there was a time when all the Asian international students used to wear Balenciaga head to toe, and they don't wear Balenciaga head to toe anymore. They wear like Dior head to toe or like Prada head to toe. So it's showing, or Bottega head to toe now. So it's showing that Balenciaga slowly is kind of going out of favor with like that market, which is interesting to see.
I think it's also possibly because he already did, like I said, the game kind of became, the marketplace changed from 2015 when you're talking Venomons to 2020 even. Like I do say, I don't want to be that guy, but I do say Kim Jones Dior is another, it's that LV to Dior switch changed a lot of menswear fashion at least. And then it did drip into women's wear.
Yeah, this collection was more about the CEOs and profit. Yeah, I find it crazy that someone literally said, maybe Demna is just saving his ideas for the kids. That's funny. That is funny. Yeah, I think this is for Leo. Blink twice. You broke through the firewall, the Demna firewall. But yeah, this is when, you know, like all the stuff that they did for like publicity stunts. And do you know what's weird? I feel like, and this is why I can't be fooled by, you know, what Demna says, because bro, the communication back then, do you remember when all this stuff was being released? We were calling Demna a marketing genius, and that was kind of how the communication coming from the brand was. Like, that's how they were communicating things, that it was actually like marketing genius. It was to garner attention. And somewhere along the line, the communication changed into it being like some intellectual thing. When it started, that was not how they were communicating these ideas. So that's why I don't even buy it when they do these gimmicky things. I'm always just going to be like, nah, they're actually gimmicks, because how I remember it is I'm sure all of you remember, all of you guys that have been into fashion for a while will remember how this stuff was communicated. When we used to see this stuff, all we used to talk about was marketing and social media strategy. That's all we used to talk about when we used to see this stuff. Or like the Balenciaga 7-layer parka, I think. 7-layer jacket. Like this kind of stuff, same thing. That's the conversation we were having about it. Like just pure marketing, and it was selling for 9K too. It was a time, crazy time in fashion. Yeah, facts. Balenciaga has endless memes, like so many, like too many in fact. Like the Balenciaga IKEA bag was a meme. IKEA bag was a meme. I mean, the Balenciaga, what was it? Towel skirt. Towel skirt was a meme, especially because of the IKEA campaign. So yeah, it's just like, to say that you don't do things for clicks, I don't know about all of that. I don't agree. Leo's taken down with the Demna apologist. Even the new Balenciaga Puma's already a meme. You guys are telling Leo to blink twice. You can't even see his face. Yeah, the whole Erewhon collection was a meme, to be fair. That was actually quite dystopian. I was almost like, this looks like a collection that Kim Kardashian would design. Like, it looks like if Skims and Balenciaga collaborated. Like, the leggings, the Erewhon bags, the coffee cup holders. It literally looked like something that Kim Kardashian would make if she was creative director at Balenciaga for one season. No joke. This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind-the-scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club, where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.